He talks a good game. He talks a good game. On the X-Zone. He talks a good game.
Hello, welcome to On the Edge, son. I hope you're all well. Let me just make sure the levels are okay here. Yeah, welcome to a it's a breakfast show of sorts. Maybe just a little after breakfast. It's a brunch show. It's a bit of a funny old game, isn't it? Last night, I was fully expecting Nottingham Forest to beat Wolves and to go 5 points clear. They didn't. They got a draw, 0-0. And then moments later, Sean Dyche gets sacked. The day before, Thomas Frank gets sacked from Spurs, of course. If you're in the chat, if you're going to watch us live, let us know you're here in the chat. Give us your thoughts. If you're watching this later, put comments in below. By all means, let us know your thoughts as well. What do you think of both sackings? Do you think they deserved it? Do you think their form warranted a sacking, a change of manager? I think there's definitely a case for Spurs sacking their manager on the back of their poor form. Nottingham Forest, I think I said in yesterday's show, actually, in terms of results, last 6 games, West Ham, Forest, and I think I said Leeds, pretty similar in terms of form. So they weren't doing too bad, actually, the last 6 games. I think the BBC had them 9th in terms of the list of top form teams. I think Man United were number 1. West Ham, we were 10th, I believe, something like that. So we weren't doing, they weren't doing too bad, as of course we weren't. We're all saying how well we're playing at the moment. Well, actually, Forest, if you think about it, weren't doing too well. I suppose the argument is that they should have, could have, would have beaten Wolves last night. They had much more of the game. But obviously, if you don't score, you don't score. And they came away with it. It wasn't a disaster. They didn't lose. Unlike West Ham when we lost to Wolves, of course. They didn't lose, and we lost to Forest as well. But they dropped points. And there was an opportunity for them to go 5 clear of us, of course. They didn't. They're within touching distance. Every game coming up is a difficult game. And apparently, it was written on the wall that Sean Dyche was going to get the knock on this one. Morning, Frog and One. Hello, how are you? They're all panicking. Yeah, absolutely, they're all panicking. They're all panicking out there. They're seeing the likes of us. They're seeing the likes of Leeds as well. Get points, get good draws, get good wins. And they're starting to really worry. They think they've got to stop the rot. They've got to stop that change. I just wonder, from a purely biased point of view, looking at it, will this affect us? Will this affect us negatively? In other words, will they get a bump? Whatever manager they get in. I think they were talking this morning. How true this is, who knows what's going to happen. But Forest are looking at Pereira. Getting him in. Well, judging by the results that Pereira got at Wolves, I'm not that concerned, really. Apparently, Marinakis, a Forest owner, he likes Pereira because Pereira used to work with him at Olympiacos. Whether he'll bring success or not, but he hasn't actually had a great run of it in the Premier League, so I'm not that concerned by it. Wolves did a funny thing with Pereira, didn't they? Was it Pereira that... they did a funny thing. They gave him a really long extension to his contract, and then a few weeks later they sacked him. So, but anyway, listen, they've... I assume I'm talking about the same guy here. It's not another manager with the same name, I'm assuming. And then obviously Spurs, they were talking about De Zerbi yesterday. Some other rumours this morning, I think talking about Maresca as well, going over there. But, look, it's not really a concern of mine. Again, who becomes their manager, don't really care. But the point is, what I do care about is whether they can get a reaction out of the players. And Maresca going into Spurs, I think, probably have more of an effect than a Pereira going into Forest. That's all I'm saying. So either way, I don't want either of those teams to have a reaction, to have a bump, because actually I want them to still struggle, and for us to give us that time to get those points, to catch them and overtake them, of course. But there we go. Frogging away, yeah, not convinced Forest or Spuds have the bones for a bump. I'll tell you what, I would say Forest do have it. At times I've seen Forest play and I think they've done all right. Spurs have just never been impressed with at all. Trying to look at it from an objective point of view, they haven't looked good for a couple of seasons, and this season they look pretty awful. And their players just look all over the place as well. It's almost like they're knocking the ball about, but there's no fight in them, no fight in those players. And we've all identified this with our own respective teams, right? Whomever you support, from time to time you look at your team, you think there's no bite in there, there's no real design. That's what I see from Spurs. I don't see that from Forest. I still think they got a little bit in them. And whilst, I'm not sure you can necessarily argue against the Dyche sacking. I'm also a bit surprised. In fact, I'm a very surprised, really, because he is a manager who's kind of used to this kind of position in the league. He knows how to get into a dogfight. He knows how to be pragmatic. They were still out of the relegation zone. It wasn't as if they lost last night, and they're the 8th or 9th or whatever it is in the current form list. So it was, there are many teams below them that were doing worse. So I'm not saying I'm a little surprised. I would say not massively surprised, but a little surprised. But look, given the owner wants instant gratification. It's almost like he's that baby that needs that rattle just to, calm him down. That's a little bit like Marinakis. Can you blame the guy for it? Because you pump all this money into it and you kind of think, well, he wants a return. He wants something better. And he's throwing money at it, and he's throwing players, and he's throwing support. And time after time, he's been let down by managers, and he's kind of, So if that's the case, then you really got to look at the kind of person you are to employ these people. Just like we would say for Sullivan and Brady, right? Look at what you're doing. Look at how you're running the club. Look at what decisions you're making, what managers you're employing, what direction you're taking the club, before you kind of start lumping all the blame on everybody else. It's very easy to sack a manager, but you employed him in the first place, right? It's very easy to, say, oh, well, the manager's, at fault, but have you really supported him? Have you really given him all the tools that they need? So there's lots of things to consider here. But listen, Sean Dyche got sacked. I mean, let's have a look at the form here. It was, 2 wins in the last 6 with 3 draws. Only 1 loss in their last 6. West Ham have got 2 losses in their last 6. Leeds have got 2 losses in the last 6. Spurs have got 4 losses in the last 6 with 2 draws. Brighton in 14th place. They got 3 losses in their last 6 and 3 draws. Crystal Palace, 3 losses in their last 6, 1 win and 2 draws. You have to go up to Fulham, Sunderland and Newcastle to start matching wins with Forest. So as I say, in terms of form, last 6, just like West Ham, not terrible at all. Wouldn't say brilliant either, but not terrible. Only 1 loss there in the last 6. That's not bad. That's not bad. So you kind of look at it and go, yeah. The question is now, as I said, how does it affect us? How does it affect us going forward? They've got a bit of time to regroup, haven't they? Forest still in the cup. Let me just have a look here. I'm not sure. Are they in the cup? I can't see them in that. So it's on the Sunday. Is there any Sundays? No. They got who knocked out Forest in the last round then? Oh yeah, I do remember they did get knocked out, didn't they? Yeah. So they got knocked out in the last round. Wait a minute. Let me look at Friday night. Have I missed one? No, that's right. Spurs out of it as well. But it just goes to show how much attention I've been paying those two clubs, right? Okay, so you could argue, unless I've got this wrong, they're both out of the club. They're both out of the cup. The FA Cup I'm talking about. So that means they've got time to regroup. Yes. Forest, yeah, they're both in the Europe, aren't they? This week as well. That's a bit. Or sorry, next week I should say. So let's have a look here on Tuesday. No, sorry, not Spurs. They didn't make it, did they? But Forest, yeah, Thursday. So they're playing the knockout rounds. Okay, so they're still in there. So they've still got a bit of work to do. Spurs have got a couple of weeks to regroup, get a new manager, get in there, and bounce back for them, right? I think it's going to take a lot of work to get Spurs back. Forest, I'm not so sure it'll take a lot of work to get them back and firing and playing on the front foot. And I think they've got some decent players. Talking about decent players, I will go off on a tangent just 1 second. Did anybody catch the Celtic game last night? Or the result? They won. Last minute winner by the guy who I said a couple of weeks ago that we should be looking at to get in. In fact, I said it a few months ago that we should be looking to get into. Oxlade-Chamberlain, last minute winner. Great goal, fantastic goal that he scored. And they got him because he was left. He left Besiktas in Turkey or whatever it is, and free agent. So he's a bit, he's what, 32 odd. But he scores a great goal. So these are the kind of players. I think why aren't West Ham invested in these sorts of players to the end of the season? Then you see them. Okay, granted, Scottish League. Okay, I take all that on board, but still, there's a decent player in there that you could bring on as a sub and have that extra support, that extra depth in the squad, simply to the end of the season and see how we go. One of my fears for West Ham, especially, is that we don't have a great deal of depth there right now. And you look at the players that we're bringing on the other night, and they're sort of defensive players. They played well. Don't worry, we can all see that they played well and they give it their all. But if you want to look at going forward and attacking and having a bit of composure and class and experience, then you kind of got to look, well, where's our depth there? Where's our depth? And we haven't got it. And I think, people have been talking about Raheem Sterling, making a play for him. I'm not sure he's the kind of player that we need, in all fairness. I've never been his biggest fan. Quality at times, but never been his biggest fan. But he did manage to get goals all the time. I'm not sure what he would be demanding in terms of wages, but Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's one of those players I think has just slipped through the net. I think we should have grabbed him while we could. Look, Martin O'Neill, who's gone back into Celtic, of course. How long for? Whether just to the end of the season until they can regroup themselves. He's identified Oxlade-Chamberlain is a good player who's out of a club. He just needs to play football. And he took a chance on him and immediately repaid. So it just goes to show that there are players out there, even now, that are out of contract, that you can still be signed outside of the transfer window, that you can pick them up and they might do a job. Pay as you play, or, 20 grand a week, 30 grand a week. In the grand scheme of things, if you can identify them as a decent player, they'll do a job for you. The only problem with Raheem Sterling, like, I don't think anybody's getting Raheem Sterling for 20 or 30 grand a week. I don't know what his what deal he was on in terms of, I think he was on 200 or 300 grand a week or something ridiculous like that, wasn't he? I don't know if they've paid off his contract in full so that he's a free agent, so he can afford to take 20 or 30 grand, 50 grand a week, whatever it is, or whether he's going to still demand, 200 grand a week or something. Well, if that's the case, then obviously we don't need him. But we need players. We don't need mercenaries. We need players that are going to come in and do a business for us. And we need that sort of commitment, that desire. I'll tell you what, the desire that Tati shows game in, game out for me. Tati, we're singing his song. He just gives it. He just gives it every single time. And, okay, I suppose to question the levels, but why are we sort of dismiss? I'm not sure we are dismissing him. I think most West fans are looking at him and thinking, actually, he's a trier. Pablo's a trier as well. At least, the very least, that we need a trial, but we have to sprinkle in the quality there. We have to sprinkle in the quality. Tati, I think, has got a bit of both. I don't think he's got all the quality, and I don't think he's, got all the fight, but I think he's got a nice mix of both. Maybe not to lead the line, maybe not to be our number one going forward. We need to reinforce in the summer. But, Pablo can make a difference, I think. And it may not be that he's the one who gets the goals. There have been many strikers in the past, which is a bit of an oxymoron, really, because you need your strikers to score, right? But there have been many strikers in the past that don't really score that many goals, but they are a great striker in terms of other attributes. And Pablo can develop into that, but the fact is he is a goal scorer, or supposedly a goal scorer. The question is, can he do it at this level? I go back to the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain and other players who are in the mix or could potentially be in the mix. If we're looking at short term, then why not? Why not go for it? But of course, we're dealing with an ownership that doesn't think that far ahead, doesn't look that far ahead. You've got owners like Marinakis, for example, at Forest, and the Spurs ownership model, I suppose, that's been all up in the air as well, isn't it? Well, they make changes. They invest. Okay, it may not be great, but they invest. They put their money where their mouth is. They try to affect change. They try to do something, right? And just like in any walk of life, certainly in football, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? Now, you could say for Spurs and Forest, it just hasn't worked this season. Spurs for 2 seasons in a row, right? But they won their Europa League last season, okay, and all that sort of stuff. Forest had a great season under Nuno last season. They're still in Europe. They're still out the relegation zone. So, they could have had a chance to go forward. So, Marinakis making the decision there, jumping the gun, you kind of think, well, could he have persisted with Dyche, or with this change that he's going to make, can it get them even further up the league? Can it get them further into Europe? But at least he's willing to make that change. At least he's willing to put his balls on the line and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and make a go at it. We don't see this from Sullivan. We don't see this from the board. We always keep on saying Sullivan and Brady. My contention has always been, it's not just them two, right? It's not just them two. It's the whole board. It's the whole board. They're a complete shit show. And that's it. I will say this the other night, which I was a little bit unsure of. And I suppose this follows on from yesterday. I don't often watch many other channels, I got to say. But yesterday I did catch West Ham Fan TV talk about getting pushed off from filming outside the London Stadium by the But security guys out there, and they're kind of wondering, well, why? Who's telling us to move away? And, so interestingly, when I was at the United game, before the game started, we had media guys, or dressed in media, right, coming in with us, around us, with cameras, making video footage of all of us. And you kind of wonder now, is it purely for promotional reasons, or is there something else going on? Are they taking footage for other reasons? Have they identified a certain section of the fan base, and they want to take video evidence or something? I don't know. And this is before the game, or they just clocking in who is actually there and who isn't. So I was a bit. Okay. I thought about it. I thought, is this dodgy? But then at the same time, I sort of dismissed it. No, this is just West Ham doing their promotional stuff. I was just a bit surprised that they came in with us and started taking, and they didn't ask if they could film me and others. They just pointed the camera in our direction. I don't really have a problem. I'm not going to say, oh no, you can't film me, that kind of thing. But it would have been nice if they'd asked. It wasn't as if they were filming from the other side, from pitch side, if you know what I mean, just taking a footage of taking footage of the crowd, as in a generic crowd. They were actually in the crowd, pointing the camera right at us. And so I thought, it's a bit, do you know what I mean? I put my best scowl on, like that, so hopefully they won't have me featured, but there we go. But, that goes on to, I know I've gone a bit of a tangent here, but that goes on to, like, what West Ham what's the guy's name? Nicky, right? He was basically saying, that they got kicked off. He was showing the video footage of when the security was telling them to get off. Can they tell them to get off? Is it public land? Are they trespassing? All this kind of stuff. And they say, wait, look, the thing is, West Ham Fan TV, just like many other fan channels who do fan interviews, right? They're that kind of channel. They've been doing it for years and years outside stadiums. People all over the place have got, cameras, and they've got their phones out taking video footage and selfies and doing video calls and everything. So, you do wonder, well, what is the agenda here? What is going on? It'd be interesting to see, if West Ham Fan TV, if they provide any kind of follow-up to that. So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. So I don't know the legalities of that in terms of that, but I just don't know. I just don't know what that means. Frog and a Well, here we go. Let me just see what you say here. West Ham Fan TV mix up publicly owned and publicly accessible rights. Yeah, again, it can get a bit confusing, but I was not aware of any restriction of filming around the London Stadium. In fact, I wasn't aware of any restriction of filming inside the London Stadium. I could be wrong, but I don't know. And then you got to look at, well, what is commercial? Are they saying commercial filming rights and commercial filming permits? Because there is a difference there, and I know this for a fact. Now, it depends whether some bright spark out there has said, well, actually, you're doing this for a monetized professional YouTube channel. Therefore, it is commercial filming, right? Therefore, you haven't got any permits. Therefore, you have to go. I don't know. I don't know how it's been. I don't know who's making the decision. So it'd be very interesting to see, and maybe we'll never find out. But the fact of the same night that we had West Ham media team, or lad and the two lads walking around and taking footage of us, and I kind of thought, well, it's just a bit odd here. It's a bit odd what was going on, but there we go. But look, will Sean Dyche getting sacked, will Thomas Frank getting sacked have any impact on us? Well, I hope so. I hope it has a positive impact on us. Of course I do. As I said yesterday, I hope that all the teams above us, they all lose. They all lose every game. And whatever points we can get, we start leapfrogging them and going, above them. As as a godfather would say, it's nothing personal. It's just business, right? It's just business. This is all business. It's nothing personal, but we all know it's personal, right? It's all business. I have no ill will for any of the teams above us. I'm indifferent, if anything. I'm indifferent to any of them. I always have been. I don't really care about any other team. I don't care about West Ham. I don't care about any other team. Regardless of how I sometimes kind of despair with them or get frustrated with them or actually kind of think I hate them, I'm more indifferent to all of them. But what I'm not indifferent about is us getting above them. That's it. Especially now. We got to get out of the relegation zone. We got to get all the way up there. So, I hope that we take this as a positive sign. That we don't pin our hopes on other teams and other managerial failings or managerial successes. I hope that we as a club, Nuno, the coaching staff, and all the players take this and say, well, it doesn't matter what's going on there. This is up to us. This is on us. We got to keep on. Chipping away. And that's it. Frogging away. Let me just put your thing up here. Not sticking up for the club. No, neither have I. I mean, I don't stick up for the club, but I also try to look at things objectively as well. So I will say that as well. Not sticking up for the club, but a private propertier has a right over individual service, like a shop, etc., can refuse service for any reason, so long as it isn't within prejudice. Yes, I'm not sure whether that would apply in this case, because there is no service being delivered to the customer in terms of that. Whether you've bought a ticket, the club can refuse you entrance, can't they? For whatever reason, just like going into a shop, just like going into a club or wherever, they can refuse to serve you. They can refuse to let you enter, even though you've bought a ticket. They might have to give you a refund and all that sort of stuff, but they can refuse to let you enter. It's the same as this. However, being around the stadium, I don't believe that they can stop you. They can stop you being there. Now, of course, they've got the security cordon that you go through, but they can only stop you in terms of stuff that you have on you that is not allowed past that. But that would be, okay, well, if you surrender that, whatever it is, illegal stuff, then they can't they can't refuse you, I don't think. Unless it's some kind of, you've got weapons on you or something like that, then they'd probably say, okay, we need to call the police, you're not letting you coming through here, right? But in terms of general stuff, they say, okay, you're not coming through. But in most cases, I don't think they can stop you going through. They can't stop you being around the stadium. So then it means, well, if they're going to try and pull this over one particular group of people or one person, let's say, then where does this end? Where else does this go? Who else does it impact? Do you know what I mean? I don't do a lot of filming around the stadium, but for another channel, every now and then I'll do live links from inside the stadium. I'll do live links from just outside the stadium. See what's going on, just before the match is about to start. Sometimes I used to do it at half-time. Sometimes I used to do it full-time. But, you've got to look at... I'll tell you what, I had this feeling the other night, and it's an odd feeling that I did feel a little bit uneasy before the game, and I wasn't sure why, and it felt as if this wasn't West Ham. And I know I'm saying it now, and many people think, well, why are you saying this now? It just sprung to mind, really, that I just felt a little bit uneasy. I think it was because of this, and I'll tell you what it is. And I've got, this is not about being, anti anybody or any particular person or peoples or anything like that, right? It's got nothing to do with it. It didn't feel like West Ham on a really big night for us. It didn't feel like it because where I was, there was so many tourists. In fact, in and around me, there were so many new faces. It felt like West Ham were the easiest club to get tickets for, to games to West Ham. And it's simple, really, if you think about it. Any club is simple. You just have to become a member of that club. You pay 25, 30 quid or whatever it is to be a member. Then you see if you can get tickets, right? You see if you can get tickets off their ticket exchange or whatever the equivalent is. So people talking about, how do they get tickets here? Well, actually, you don't have to go through all these different sources. You can just become a member for 25 quid a year or whatever it is. I don't know, 50 quid a year. Some people might see that as an investment. And you just get tickets. You get tickets wherever you are. West Ham, easy to get tickets for. I'm not saying you'll be at pitch side, but easy to get tickets for, right? Okay, you'll pay 60, 70, 80 quid a game, especially for the big games. Maybe more, right? But you're still going to get you still get your tickets. I just felt that night it seemed to be so many fans, so many people watching the game that weren't strictly West Ham. And you always see it right at the start. They're all at the front. They all got their cameras out in the warm-up sessions, and they're all pointing their cameras at the Man United players. And you're going, well, you're all Man United fans, aren't you? What are you doing? And it's just, I'm not saying they were cheering and shouting when Man United scored or anything like that, but there was, It didn't feel right. So I had this uneasy feeling throughout the night. And then, coupled with that media team filming and coupled with, a couple of other things I was seeing that night, I just felt a little bit that wasn't quite right. And I was getting to the point, this is before the game, right? This is before the game. And then I got into the game, so I didn't even think about it. And obviously it was, but I got into the point, and this had actually nothing to do, would you believe, with where we are in the league and being relegated and all that sort of stuff. Because I always said, if being relegated won't stop me going or won't stop me wanting to go. But I just had a feeling last night, or the night before, I should say, where I just thought, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be part of a club where the club treats you like this. And it's almost like a little bit of George Orwell 1984 type thing. And I know it's a weird thing to start thinking about, but that's what I was feeling at the time. And I was thinking, this isn't right, this. And then you start thinking, your mind starts spiraling over all the things that the club has done to different fans and and all this sort of stuff. And you kind of think, well, they never really value you, do they? That's the thing. They never really value you. They only want you when they're, getting on hard times. This is all clubs. They start to get relegated, all the fans disappear, and then they start coming out with a beg and bowl and come and support the team and all that sort of stuff. But when they're in the Premier League, they don't give a toss about you. Because they know they're getting all the, especially like when the likes of Man United come to town, because then you get all the other Man United fans just buying tickets, all those so-called fans who just want to watch a big team like Man United, and that's it. So they can say in their little scrapbook, I went to see Man United the other night against West Ham, and that's it. That's what they bank on. That's what they bank on. There's something else. Other businesses that are very similar to that. They don't care about the core fan. They don't care about the core loyal supporter. All they want is the next person who's willing to pay over the odds to go and watch a game of football. And they just go from game to game to watch a game of football. And they don't care about. That's their business model. Yeah, and at the same time, we're being treated like whatever. I'm half expecting anytime I go up to put my phone up to the the turnstile that I'm blocked. I'm half expecting it. I don't know why. I mean, don't know why what justification they would have to block me or to ban me, but I'm just half expecting it to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but But there we go. And I have been quite critical of the club in the past as well. Certainly of Brady and Sullivan. Certainly I stand by the protest. Certainly I hold up my red card at 15 minutes. Certainly of that. I was sing and chant to get them out of the club and to effect change. I will do that. But But there we go. What can I say? I've gone off on a complete tangent there. I do know that. Yeah, bad business by the club, but it is bad. I think, as I've said about this on one of my other channels, I'm talking about another business and say, look, if you don't protect the core customer, or the customers in general, but core customers as well, if you don't protect them, if you don't bend over backwards to make them feel they're getting a good deal, a good product, a good service, whatever it is, right, you will lose those. So we already know that West Ham have lost so many fans, right? And they're banking on that those fans just keep on going, those fans that only want to go to the odd game, those fans who are members and who will buy the odd ticket, and all those other fans that are not West Ham fans that can easily get tickets. That's what they're banking on. That's all they care about, right? You think about it, you got a season ticket holder, which I am. Let's say if I can't go to the game, I say in the past I'll put my ticket on ticket exchange, right? Put my ticket on ticket exchange, so at least I'm getting a bit of money back, right? The reality is that the club pay you a nominal fee. I think it's like a third of the value of that ticket or something like that. But they go and sell that or try and sell that and they only give you a third of the price if they sell the ticket, right? But they sell it at full value. So let's just say for a £60 ticket, you'll get 20 quid back or something. Maybe for more, you might get a little bit more, whatever it is, for an adult ticket, right? Whatever it is. Maybe half, they give you half, whatever it is. So they're profiteering twice. They've already got your money as a season ticket, but then they're selling your ticket again and not giving you the money for it. So they're not giving you a full refund for the game that you can't go to. They're making money on it as well. How much money have they done through that? I bet. But they don't thank you for it. They don't give you any money for it. And so they put all these extra restrictions on. There's a lot of bad feeling. There's a lot of bad mojo around the club and the feeling towards the board and the way the club. And this kind of thing just does not work. Does not lend itself to better club fan relations. And the only thing we can think of is, or the only thing we can do is just keep on supporting the team and keep on hoping that we can get somewhere and survive. But the question is, if we survive, are we still going to be in the same place? Are we still going to be in the same kind of football? Are we still going to have the same ownership mentality? Is this going to continue year after year? And I can't, unless they sell, unless they go, I can't see anything changing. The worst thing for us in many ways is if we do stay in the league, in terms of this thing, what I'm talking about, fan relations, unless they do a complete change of attitude. But this kind of thing, watch your space for what happens in the future. It'd be very interesting. Anyway, listen. Other clubs have got their own problems. We got our own problems. But on the field, we're doing well. Got to support that. Got to love that. But we're still in it. That's the problem. We're still in the fight. I put up a video short last night of Bubbles, and I put this lad singing the Bubbles song. I took that video the other night. I was at the stadium, and they're putting the Bubbles. I thought it was a nice contrast against the night sky. And I was looking at it, this gives me hope. It does give me hope. I look at that, it does give me hope that we can do it. Not a lot of hope, but it does give me hope, But again, we're hoping that the other teams will fall. And so far, they've been doing a good job for us. Last night, in particular, we had some great results go our way. So that means all we have to do is just keep on keeping on. We just need to keep on with that momentum, keep on getting points, keep on winning. You know. And the impatient one in me just says we need to get 3 points straight away. Every game we need to win, right? But I know that's not going to be realistic. But we need to keep on going, and those other teams keep on losing. Anyway, that's it. That's the Breakfast Club over. You know, don't you forget about me. That's right. Don't forget about me for my next live show coming whenever that is, likes video, whatever that is. But thanks for joining. Thanks. I know it's a bit of an early start, so many people won't have joined. If you're watching this later, obviously leave comments below. Frog and Well, thanks for joining and your comments as well. Really appreciate it. Yeah, have a good day to you, pal, as well. And all I can say is up the hammers. I'll catch you again. Bye now.